Whew. Hi there. I'm Lilia Lewis, and welcome to another edition of New Day, New Beginnings. Well, today I'll take a giant step back in time. Um, and I'm going to reflect on something my parents and even my grandparents used to say about stuff. Let me move this over a little bit. About stuff. Uh, used stuff. Stuff you get from someplace or from somebody, you know, um, even your own family. We always have somebody that's got something that either you could use that they're not using or however it goes. But I like to, okay, let's take siblings. Now, if there are two or three boys or two or three girls, um, and you're not the first, well, then you're going to get the hand me downs because the first one gets all the new stuff. That's just the way it is. And then when they outgrow it you're a year or so younger, so it gets passed down to you. And if you're third in line, then, well, you get the picture. But, well, back then, you can't afford to be just not using everything to the best that you can. And fortunately, guess what? I was the only girl, so I didn't even have that problem. But that that's what I'm going to be talking about today. The different types of hand-me-downs. And today I'm going to be talking about generational hand-me-downs. And that's my title for today's lesson. Hand-me-downs. What have you been given lately? Now, when I say generational, I mean like a business or a company or rulership. And I'm talking about rulership today because I'm going to go back to King David's time and Hezekiah. And they were both rulers in Judah. Now, first it was King David, and then it was Hezekiah. Now, Hezekiah was after King David, but he did everything the same way, according to the same type of rule, the same beliefs. He believed and trusted in God. He did everything the same way King David did. And he followed his whole life the same way King David did. But one time it came, he got kind of fearful. He got kind of fearful because the king of Assyria had threatened to take over his people, his land, everything, because the king of Assyria was a very strong person. And this made Hezekiah very fearful. And Hezekiah began to pray for God's protection. And that's where we're going to start today. Let's go to 2 Kings, verse 19. And I'm going to go right to Hezekiah's prayer. And that starts in verse 16 of chapter 19. And he says, Lord, bow down thine ear and hear. Open, Lord, thine eyes and see. And hear the words of Sennacherib, who has sent him to reproach the living God. Of a true God, of the king of Assyria, he has destroyed many nations and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire, for there were no gods, but wood, handmade things. Now, therefore, O Lord our God, I beseech thee. And to beseech means begging in his prayer. He says, I beseech thee that you save us out of the hands of the king of Assyria, and that all the kingdoms of the earth may be known that you are the Lord God and the only one. Now, that was his prayer. That was his prayer because he knew that he didn't have the strength that it required to fight off the Assyrians. But look what happened. Let's go to verse 32 because there is God's answer to his prayer. And God said to him, therefore saith the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into thy country, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with the shield, or cast a bank against it. By the way he came, he shall return, and he shall not come into this city, saith the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for thy servant's sake, David. Because David was a strong man of God as well. And look at verse 35. It says, and it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote, wiped out the camp of the Assyrians, 185,000. And when they arose the next morning, behold, there was nothing there but all corpses. So the king of Assyria was totally defeated while Hezekiah and his people slept because he had prayed to God for strength and protection of his people. And verse 37 says, this is when the king went back to Assyria, because it said once he had lost the battle, he went on back to Assyria and dwelt in the town of Nineveh. And it came to pass while he, the king of Assyria, was worshiping in the house of his God, because they all had false gods, handmade gods. His two sons came in and smote him with a sword. His own sons came in and killed him with the sword. And they left. They ran away. And his other son reigned in his stead. So God took care of it through one prayer, because Hezekiah was following right in King David's footsteps. But then Hezekiah became sick. He was so sick, he was sick unto death. And the prophet Isaiah had come to see him. And the prophet Isaiah, he said to him, he said, thus saith the Lord, set your house in order, for thou shalt surely die and not live. And Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed unto the Lord. And he said in his prayer, Lord, I beseech thee, I'm begging you, please remember how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept. And it came to pass, before Isaiah the prophet had even gone out into the middle court, a word of the Lord came to him again. And it said, turn back, go back in there, and tell Hezekiah, thus saith the Lord, I have heard your prayer. I have seen thy tears, and behold, I will heal thee. On the third day thou shalt go up into the house of the Lord, and I will add unto thee days of 15 years. And I will deliver thee and this city out of the hands of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city for my sake and for King David. How can you get, he just prayed and he got 15 years added to his life. And Isaiah told him, all you have to do is take a lump of figs. And they did. And they took the figs and they laid it on the boil, and he recovered. And Isaiah said, the Lord will do the thing that he has spoken. So all it means is all you got to do is trust him. Ask, pray, beseech, beg for whatever it is you need, be it protection, be it guidance. Now, let's go to chapter 20, because after he was sick, then the king of Babylon had heard that he was sick, and he had sent him letters and a present to Hezekiah. Now, after Hezekiah had received these, let's look at chapter 20, verse 13. Hezekiah hearkened unto them. He called, sent his messenger and asked them to come. And he showed them all of the precious things he had, his silver, his gold, his spices. He had all kinds of ointments and all the armor and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house, nor his domination, that he did not show them. But at that same time, Isaiah the prophet, he came in and he asked him, he said, well, what are these men doing here and where are they from? And he said, well, they're from a far country. They came from Babylon. And he said, well, what have they seen here in your house? And Hezekiah said, well, they've seen everything in my house, but there's nothing among my treasures that I haven't shown them. And Isaiah said to Hezekiah, he said, hear the word of the Lord. He said, behold, the days will come that all that is in thine house and that which thy fathers even laid up in store unto this day shall be carried unto Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And thy sons, what they have beget, that shall be taken away also. And not only that, he said, and they, meaning his sons, they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Well, that's not good. So what were they, spying to see what he had? Because now Isaiah is telling him, you're not going to have this stuff, and neither are your sons. Your sons are going to become slaves in Babylon. And, he went on to do, Hezekiah, he went on to do many good acts for the people, but this was foreseen later on down the line. So Hezekiah died, and he went to sleep with his fathers. And that's when Manasseh, his son, reigned in his stead. In his stead, meaning after him. So, but see, Manasseh, he was only 12 when he began. He was 12 years old. So, of course, even though he reigned for 55 years, he was only 12. And that meant that he was under the guidance of his mother and the scribes and the priests and, all the other elders. But let's look at what happened in verse 2 of chapter 21, because it says, as he got older, this is, he began to do that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, after the abominations of all the heathens, and the Lord had cast them out before. And abominations are extreme disgust and loathing of the Lord. Now his son is doing just the opposite of what he was bequeathed to do. So he began to build up, verse 3. He began to build up again. That says again, high places, because Hezekiah and King David had torn down anything that was worshiping idols. So everything here that now Manasseh is taking down his father's stuff, which was honoring the Lord. So he was beginning to destroy now what his father had put up, and he put back all the stuff his father had taken down. He reared up the altars for Baal, and you know Baal is a false god. And he made a grove, and he worshipped all the hosts of heaven, and their hosts of heaven means all the different gods that they had, all the idols that they worshiped. And he built altars in the house of the Lord, of which where the Lord had said he was going to put his own name. The Lord said, I will put my name. And he built altars for all the hosts of heaven in the two courts of the house of the Lord. Well, that's defiling the house of the Lord. And look at verse 6. And he made his son pass through the fire. Well, passing through the fire, that means he sacrificed his own son, because that's what they did back then. They sacrificed the children to the false gods. That's how they were thinking they were getting their protection, and used enchantments and dealt with familiar spirits and wizards. And he brought much wickedness in the sight of the Lord to provoke God to his anger. And he set a graven image in the grove that he had made in the house of the Lord. And this was where the Lord had told David and Solomon, in this house I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever. Well, and then I will prevent you, meaning the Israelites, you'll never have to move anymore out of this land, which I gave to your fathers. Only if, here's the catch, only if you observe and do according to all that I have commanded, and according to all the law my servant Moses has commanded. So God's given him fair warning. If you don't follow my commandments, you will pay the price. But it's like Manasseh, he wasn't listening. Nobody would listen because they had to do what the king said. And it says Manasseh, he encouraged the people even more to do more than the other nations had done that God had already destroyed. So he was having no fear of nothing. He was just being defiant. He was offensive to God with all his rebellion, and it was a direct insult to God. Now he is really making God angry, because God said, because he has done all these abominable, hateful things, and he's done so much wickedness, and even made the people do what he said with his sin and with his idols. Now let's look at verse 12. Verse 12 says, therefore saith the Lord, I am going to bring such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah that whoever hears of it, both both their ears will tingle. Now, what does that mean? Their ears will tingle. That simply means that anybody who hears what God has said he's going to do and the harsh punishment that's going to come with it, they're in shock and they're totally fearful of the judgments that God is going to lay on them. Because under Manasseh's rule, Judah has fallen terribly into ruin. He has undone everything that Hezekiah, his father, had built. And you know what? As time passed, he got worse. His rebellion deepened. His reign turned into brutality. Brutality toward his own people and anyone who opposed him. That sounds familiar. But despite God's continual warnings, the people just refused to listen. No matter what God said, he was telling them right up front you saw what he did before to others. Why are you continually defying me? And look what happened. Let's read verse 13. This is God telling them. He says, I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria and the plummet of the house of Ahab. I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. Wiping it and turning it upside down. You know what that means? When you do your dishes and you turn it upside down, that means you're done with it. So he's saying, well, I'm going to do them just like I do dishes. And when I'm done, I wipe it and I turn it upside down. And I will forsake the remnant of mine inheritance. I will turn my back on anybody that's remaining that was under my inheritance, that was worshiping idols. I will turn my back on them, and then I will deliver them into the hands of their enemies, and they will become the prey of their own enemies. Why? Because they have done that which was evil in my sight, and they provoked me to anger from the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even until this day. And moreover, Manasseh, he has shed far too much blood. He's shed blood from one end of Jerusalem to the other. And that's besides his own sin, because he had the people made them sin in doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. So Manasseh had no concern at all. Despite all these warnings, he went forth and did everything he felt like doing. Innocent blood. That sounds like a massacre to me. So that was towards anybody who didn't do what he said do. And God fulfilled it. And Manasseh slept with his father and was buried in the garden of his own house. And then his son Ammon reigned in his stead. Now, let's talk about Ammon for a minute. Now, let's go to chapter, we're still in 21, but verse 19, because we're going to talk about Ammon for a minute. It says Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned, look at this, only 2 years. He reigned only 2 years because he did everything that was evil in the sight of the Lord, just as his father Manasseh had done. He walked in all the ways that his father walked. He served the idols that his father served, and he worshiped them. So he was keeping the same kind of control that his father had kept. He forsook the Lord, meaning he turned his back on him just like his father did. And he did not walk in the way of the Lord. But look what happened in verse 23. It says the servants of Ammon, they conspired against him, even though he was the king. And they slew the king in his own house. No wonder he only reigned 2 years, because they slew him in his own house. But look at verse 24. But it says, even after his servants killed him, it says the people of the land turned around and killed them, all that had conspired against the king. And the people of the land made Josiah, the king's son, made him king in his stead. So even though he only reigned for 2 years and he was assassinated by his own servants, the people still put his son Josiah in charge. But the funny part about that is Josiah began reigning at the age of 8. So he reigned for 32 years, but the point is he was still under the reign of his mother, under the guidance, I meant to say, of his mother and the priests and the scribes. But this is the good part, he was taught to do what was right in the sight of the Lord and walk in the way of David and his father, his grandfather. And he did not turn to the left hand or the right hand. And as years passed, the priests and the scribes, they found a book. And the book was called the Chronicles. And this was the writings that contained the writings of all the previous kings of Judah. And Josiah had them read it to him. And they read it to him. And Josiah, after he heard what it was saying about them, what his father and then what Hezekiah and David had done, he began removing all the stuff that they had put up, because he wanted to renew the covenant with God and get the people on the right track. So he started destroying everything that pertained to them and their worship and their idols. He broke all the idols. He cut down the grove. He removed the altars that were in the upper chambers. He took away all the vessels that they drank out of when they were worshiping Baal and all their so-called heavenly hosts. Burned all the idols, burned the groves, all the high places. And he took away all the houses that they had built up in those high places that were in the city of Samaria. And then he turned around and he killed all the priests of the high places. So any of the priests and all those that worshiped the idols and all that stuff, gone. And it even went so far as to say he burned men's bones upon them. That means he cast them in the fire. And once he had gotten rid of everything that even reminded them of them, then he went back to Jerusalem, because he knew now he could get back the covenant with God. Now, I guess you're asking, well, what is she telling me all this stuff for? Well, I did it because I wanted you to see that no matter what your circumstances are today, no matter what you've been handed down, it doesn't matter what it was. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to accept anything, especially when you know what's wrong. Now, we know the kings expected their heirs to follow in their footsteps and their reign and everything, but he did just the opposite. But you can do just the opposite by doing the reverse. People say, oh, he's going to be just like his father. She's going to be just like her mother or their uncle or whatever. And they were no good and they were drunks. And I mean, it goes on and on, but you have a choice. It's all about choices. Now, whether he read it or not, the Chronicles, he just wanted to do what he wanted to do. And the Chronicles were their guide, their account of what had happened. But we know right from wrong. So it's your choice. All you got to do all it requires is your prayer, your meditation of the word, your courage, and your determination. So no matter what your hand-me-down is, are you ready and willing to take that step? And my closing words for today are, don't allow a setback to keep you from making a comeback. Because with God, anything is possible. And until next week, I'm Lelia Lewis. Thanks for joining me.